Hi everybody, I'm Ryan. Today we're going to look at the modern metagame from this past week. We're going to be taking the decks that 5-0'd leagues, that 3-1 or 4-0'd prelims, or that top 32 challenges from this past weekend, and seeing if there's any trends we can see, and really seeing what the popular decks are from this winner's metagame. Let's jump into it. The most popular deck in Modern from this past week, by a small margin to be fair, is Merced Region, and it's really cool that Murktide is back. You know, being the fair deck of the format in a very, very decidedly unfair format. Followed very closely by the second most popular deck in the creativity variants, and then a small gap, and in third is Crashing Footfalls, also known as Rhinos. So let's talk about these three decks. The Merced Region deck is the fair deck of the format, if you can call Ragavan fair. It plays some efficient creatures, often creatures that take over the game by themselves, to be fair, but also just plays removal spells and counter spells and is just sort of acts like a tempo deck and controls you until they can actually bang in with their creature enough times that you're dead, or play a giant Murktide Regent, you know, the thing that can be like an 8/8 for 2. It is, I know, surprising that this is the closest thing you can get to fair in the format. The second most popular deck in creativity, which is overtaken for the first time in a while, because creativity was the most popular deck for quite a long time, is actually my favorite deck, is essentially a Jeskai control deck, in my opinion, where they do everything they can to make sure your opponent stops doing stuff to you, creates tokens in their deck, and then casts either Transmogrify or Indomitable Creativity on one or more tokens. When these spells are cast and they resolve properly, you reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal an artifact or creature, and then you put those onto the battlefield. And so this deck's all about cheating Archon of Cruelty and sometimes Atraxa and sometimes Emrakul and sometimes Iona out of the sideboard onto the battlefield, like as early as possible. And these creatures behind this like Jeskai control-ish package are often enough to win games. The third most popular deck in Crashing Footfalls, also known as Rhinos, is a Cascade deck. Cascade revealing cards from the top of your deck until you reveal something that costs less than the card with Cascade. And so they run 2 3-mana Cascaders, and the only thing in the deck that costs less is Crashing Footfalls. Crashing Footfalls putting 2 4/4 Rhinos onto the battlefield. And so they can cheat 2 4/4 Rhinos onto the battlefield as early as turn 3, sometimes at instant speed, specifically with the card Violent Outburst. And behind that, they have a deck building restriction that they can't play anything that costs 1 or 2 or 0, besides Crashing Footfalls, or else they'll cascade into that. But they're kind of just like a tempo deck, and like you're going to control you while they kill you with 4/4 beaters. So if we move our focus over to the top 8 metagame, because there are actually 4 modern challenges every weekend in Magic Online, so we have quite a bit of data compared to other formats. The most popular decks were Creativity and Living End sharing the top slot, and then in third place. And then in third and fourth place are Murktide Region and Crashing Footfalls. So we've already talked about Creativity, Murktide Region, and Crashing Footfalls, but let's talk about Living End. Living End is the other very good cascading deck in the format. It plays a bunch of creatures that cycle, meaning you discard them and draw a card, often for 1 or 2 max mana. And often they're very oversized and have a very high mana cost compared to what you will actually cast in your deck. And then they cast a cascading spell similar to Crashing Footfalls, and the only spell in their deck that is less than 3 mana is Living End. Living End says all creatures are sacrificed, and all creatures in graveyard get exiled and enter the battlefield. And so very often they Living End and just put 20, 30, sometimes 40, if you're like really in the deep late game, power onto the battlefield. And then that's how they win, with a bunch of just like, frankly, kind of crappy common creatures. That deck is extremely powerful, and obviously it had a very good showing for not being in the top slot in the overall metagame. Looking at my data and I looking at the numbers directly, literally a third of the Living End decks that did well this past week, and that's including leagues and prelims, were from the top 8s of one of the 4 challenges, which is really an insane showing. But that is the quick analysis of the modern metagame. If you liked this video and want to see more, please be sure to like and subscribe. I do metagame videos every single week. And let me know what you thought down in the comments. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description, especially on Twitch where I stream most nights. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.